Voice of FinTech.
Welcome to Voice of FinTech, a podcast mapping out the Swiss and global fintech scene, connecting fintech enthusiasts with startups, incubators, accelerators, business angels and VCs, and incumbents interested in partnerships. Voice of FinTech will help you navigate the fintech ecosystem. Here you can listen to the startup founder stories, what investors and incumbents are looking for when dealing with startups, and find out more about resources provided by incubators and accelerators. My name is Rudolf Falat and I'll be hosting this podcast. Hello and welcome to Voice of FinTech. Today we're joined by Eva Kaili, is an MEP from Greece, and she's a well-known figure when it comes to technologies in Europe, whether that's blockchain or AI or digital transformation altogether. So I'm really curious to hear what's cooking in the EU on that front and in general. Welcome, Eva. How are you today?
Good to be with you in Brussels. Actually, it's super warm here and waiting to do my vaccine like everybody. I think slowly we're opening up and still working. I think it's going to go like this till the end of the year. Interesting times for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for making the time. Despite all of this, you're the chair of science and technology. You're also chair at the Center of Artificial Intelligence and a co-founder of World Future Foundation, and you're an MEP, right? So how does it all tie together?
Well, actually, since we now have a lot of legislation in our hands around the emerging technologies, artificial intelligence, blockchain, digital platforms, I think everything comes together and it helps us understand the challenges and the impact these technologies will have and how to legislate in a smart way in order to fulfill the ambition that Europe has now after GDPR to actually be the, let's say, global rule setter for the internet, since nobody has done that. And we believe that this would create legal certainty and protect us from all the, let's say, impact that this technology would have in our life, not just from automation, but from the autonomy that the systems could get and also the violations of our privacy mainly. So these are our basic concerns, and this is what we try to fix.
So we'll dive into it a bit more, but I'm also interested into your backstory, right? After your broadcasting career, you've entered politics and you've been focusing on these new technologies, the science and digitalization and blockchain. So what has driven you to this? So what has motivated you to focus on these areas?
Well, as you know, I come from Greece. We had the difficult times of the austerity after the economic crisis in 2010. And since we come from a country that didn't see the solidarity that we need to see in Europe, we had extreme austerity. I was trying to figure out how we can find solutions in new technologies, since it seems that the system failed us. So I realized that this new discussion about decentralization was very interesting, and also that AI or like the new digital economy could be actually an opportunity for countries that they, let's say, failed during the third industrial revolution to be able to have a different business model in which we would have real solutions to be more resilient for the future. So this is what drove my interest, and I'm working on several files until now.
Right. And of course, you've been very busy from the very beginning and before the pandemic as well. Just maybe a little bit a personal question as well. How has your life as a politician and speaker changed during the pandemic? What kept you busy and what has been different for you? It's been obviously challenging for everyone, but everybody in a different way.
Well, I think we were lucky in this unluckiness that we were able to telework. So we kept working on our legislation. So I managed to spend more time with my family in Greece. And at the same time, I was able to move forward with all these exciting things we've been working on. But I think I was already involved with these new emerging technologies, and I was realizing that
Right.
They're here. So now I feel that everybody is in the same realization. And now we are able to, join forces and move very fast into creating these new business models that will be resilient, not just in Greece, but also in Europe and beyond. So I think this is what changed the perceptions, the priorities of the parliament and people around me. And of course, our lives. So we have this new normal situation now, like it's in a hybrid form. The way we work and the way we meet our friends and the way we do everything that we used to do.
Right. And many commentators routinely nowadays talk about how pandemic have accelerated the digital transformation around the world, right? So what do you think? Where did the private sector or the government sector grab the opportunity, and where there is more to be done?
Well, actually, we do have the tools that we needed to overcome a lot of problems, but we saw in the beginning of the pandemic disruptions of supply chains, even inside Europe. So we realized we need to achieve more things to have a real single market. So we realized our shortcomings, and now we are actually rushing into, let's say, embedding these technologies and opportunities in our system in order to achieve this resilience for challenges that go beyond borders. So I would say we responded with more Europe. So we had a different approach now. Instead of trying to figure out how anybody will respond, or its member state, or like the south or the north, we realized we are all in this together. So besides the physical distance, actually we're closer now into our response. I
Right.
think this is what changed.
And more broadly, though, what can the EU do to be more competitive versus Asia or the US when developing or adopting new technologies, COVID or not?
Well, I would say our ambition should be to keep our quality of life when we're translating everything from the offline life into the online, and of course try to see where there is room also to create new boxes in the online world, because we face challenges there that we don't have offline. And I think Europe has the ambition to do that, to protect our lives and their fundamental values. And this is something that I don't see in the US or China. I read recently an article in Financial Times, and I didn't actually know, I was not aware of, that China is imposing a huge surveillance in its workers, and especially like some super big companies, to follow the performance. And you understand how it violates all the rights that we would like to protect in Europe. So we are trying to create the framework where we can get all the benefits of the new technologies, but not to have this black mirror.
And of course, you talk a lot about blockchain and at the conferences and things like this. And recently, we've seen some unbelievable volatility or the rises of the Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. But how do you see the potential of cryptocurrencies to be used as actual currencies, right, for payments?
The ability of a cryptocurrency to have instant transaction. I think it's a way to avoid all these hidden transaction costs and to improve the system. Instead of me needing to take 3 days until I send money from one country to another, like from Brussels to my mom in Athens, this can happen instantly in a safe, trusted way. I think this potential to have technology and underlying technology that can achieve a trusted network, cryptography, instant payment, reduce of the cost, super fast and efficient, is something that we can see being implemented in several sectors. So we could use it for health data, for our transactions, in fintech especially, but we can see blockchain even for smart contracts and several sectors that could actually find solutions using blockchain to become again more resilient. So we are trying to have legal certainty, of course, because now we have all the member states developing their own strategies, and we try to have a European layer, a European sandbox to test the technology. It had issues of scalability, and hopefully we will manage to overcome these problems as it's now a mature technology and just have the benefits of it.
Right. And do you think that the focus will be on CBDCs or stablecoins so that you can actually buy something online with cryptocurrencies?
Well, no, I don't think so. I think CBDC, of course, and also the DLT, the tokenized economy, or everything that is can be called security, have great possibilities to implement and use and see the benefits of that. We're going to have some issues to, let's say, define what is DeFi, decentralized finance, because we might call decentralized the finance a lot of things that they are not actually removing all the intermediaries, they're reducing them, but they're not completely decentralized. So we have some issues with the definition in order to also take advantage of these technologies. But I see potential in all of those, depending how you use them. And we expect to see more applications now. And of course, if you have legal certainty, then you expect more innovative solutions take place in a safe way, and investors and consumers to feel that they can use these new technologies in a safe way, which was not the case, as you were aware of.
Right, but where are we with blockchain utilization in Europe more broadly? It seems that the focus has been more recently, apart from the crypto we talked about, on tokenization or digital assets, right? But in some other areas, maybe the progress has been a bit slower. So where do you think we are the furthest ahead? And you mentioned several times the legal certainty, right? And some sort of a framework that works across the member states and things like this. So when you talk about, as I said, tokenization or digital assets, is this something that you think is the most, or it's the easiest path to follow if you, for example, want to join the sector and build something there? Or is there something else related to blockchain that you should be focused on?
Yeah, we are trying to conclude our legislative initiatives until the end of the year, and then maybe with the trilogues, I think 22, we will be able to have sandboxes to test the technologies, especially DLT, and we're going to have also definitions for MiCA and the several different crypto assets. I think that once we achieve that, then we will see also more applications in Europe. I would say the ones that are quite interesting are bonds that they are being issued by EIB. They've been announced, the European Investment Bank, and also I think it was. So we see that we see blockchain for certification. We tested it. The architecture was not very good, the design in the beginning, but I see huge potential there in order to have control of your data, of the artists and the creators, and it's a very exciting technology too. So I can see it in the art sector and maybe anything that could be auctioned. Also in real estate and smart contracts. So I see a lot of applications of blockchain. What I still think is not easy is the interoperability and the scalability. Still, this is a challenge for this technology, but I'm sure we will have several solutions for several problems in the future in a more safe way.
Right. So when you talk about digital assets, yes, you mentioned the NFTs, and also there are quite cool applications in the art, right? And tokenization or others. But yes, the interoperability leads to other things as well, which some people talked about on this podcast, is also secondary market, right? You might want to buy NFT, but how do you sell it? And what's the price then if you cannot, right? All right. So basically, I hear from you there is some legislative work to be done and the sandboxes initiated in the EU, right? And we should see more by the end of the year. Now, that's also related to another big topic, and it's been going on for years. A lot of people are worried about the rise of AI for different reasons. Some people are worried about losing their jobs. Then the commentators are explaining that, of course, you should look at the automation of certain tasks rather than jobs that can obviously impact some jobs more than others. But then there are also some people who have even broader concerns about governance and how do we develop the nascent technologies like this so that we can benefit from their strengths and addressing the concerns of people. What do you think about the governance regarding the development of the AI? What can we do there? And or maybe what can politicians do from, let's say, framework perspective?
We are actually working on an AI ethical framework that's going to be binding by law. I've already expressed my ideas like 3 years ago in the European Parliament, calling for the need of regulation. I believe that the core of AI is also data, so we need the governance of data too, what you can use and how. I will give you an example to explain how I see things develop. So ECDC, the European Center of Disease Prevention and Control, gathered 80% of the data in the beginning of the pandemic across member states from hospitals and all the authorities responsible for the pandemic. But they had a huge problem, the realization that we had different standards. So everybody was gathering in a different way. They're collecting data in a different way, storing them in a different way. So it was impossible to use them. Besides the language issues, all the standards were completely different. So now we're working on common standards in the data governance, and then, of course, the rules that AI should follow. And I talk about AI as automation, but also AI that could give autonomy to hardware if it's embedded into hardware, like autonomous vehicles. And we need to make sure we will update our rules, and we will make everything that's illegal offline also online. We will clarify the liabilities and to have responsible, trusted, and human-centric AI. So this is the vision of Europe. I believe if we follow this path, then we will overcome the barriers and the details of creating more friction. I think we can solve it if we agree in the main principles, which is to avoid surveillance, discrimination, biases, and to increase inequalities. And I have the feeling that we are ambitious enough to achieve those things. And I have the feeling also that my colleagues, with the pandemic, they all came up into an agreement that we have to move fast and find what unites us and how we can agree to work together and improve our system. Besides sticking to the what divides us or like details that could delay this process.
All right. Well, I'm curious to find out more and to follow this. Now to I don't know if to lighten up or darken the mood, because I know you're a big fan of Black Mirror. So do you also have a favorite book related to technology, whether that's AI, blockchain, or what we talked about, that you can recommend as well?
Well, maybe two books because I don't like to have one side of the story. Currently, I'm reading The Surveillance Capitalism of Susanna Zuboff. She's one of our advisors and the Science and Technology Committee, but also the Thanks for Being Late of Friedman, who has a kind of different approach there. So saying basically that it's better to be late and safe than to rush into regulating innovation and creating more friction. So I like both books. It creates a lot of food for thought for me, but I want to have also a balanced approach because the new technologies can offer us great solutions and we cannot stick on the black side. The black side is there for us to avoid it. And I really think that in Europe we will achieve that.
You talked about your legislative agenda for this year, but in more broadly, what is ahead of you this year, whether that's in the European Parliament or your outside activities? Nowadays, the conferences look quite different, right? Often they are virtual or hybrid, and there are other projects that you're involved in. What are the other big milestones you want to hit even in these challenging times?
Listen, we have plenty of files, so I'm just talking about my committees, imagine, and also with science and technology, I can understand the upcoming challenges that are emerging, but I can give you like some words that maybe trigger new discussions. The safe deployment of 5G, not the fast deployment of 5G, until it reaches 6G, or the use of satellites for communication. I could also talk about supercomputers, so the need to have great capacity for data, and not just collection, but also to use quantum computers in order to achieve faster the understanding of technology. And in this global tech war, that somebody else might be able to break any cryptography that we have. So to create new resilient systems there. And of course, to be able to have the platform economy opening up and to instead of just having the five big ones acquiring everything and to have not to have actually a level playing field. So I would say these are the main challenges in my files, and the workers of platforms and the environmental impact of these technologies and the legislative ones and the jury committee. So all the committees, they will have to be from their side to what is changing. And the agenda of the Parliament and the Commission, it's mainly focused in the twin transitions of the digital and the green, how we can have a sustainable deployment of the digitalization. And this is, I think, quite interesting because we have to be creative. We have to find ways to use these technologies and invest in what would create the economy of the future in a way that it would be able to respond to challenges like that in a more united way, at least at the European level, and to be able to be competitive enough at the same time with the US and China at least.
Well, great stuff. So busy year as always. And my last question is very easy. What's the best way for people to find out more about what you do, whether that's in terms of speaking engagements or legislative actions and the projects and the committees you're active on? Where is the easiest way to find out more about what you do?
So everything is quite complicated. It's online. It's quite complicated to find. We definitely have everything on through Twitter handle. But if you download the EPRS application, you can find all the studies that politicians are basically reading and the recommendations we have and all the options that we are given before we legislate. So it's interesting. For example, there is a study for the cost of non-Europe. It really hits you the realization of what Europe means into having like product safety, trusted service. So everything we are working on, you will find the research of it at the EPRS application, and then on our site you can see the progress of each file, all the timeline of each file, of each committee, of each sector for any issue. And I'm active on social media and trying to also communicate what we're working on and also the challenges we face, and I'm open to listen to any concerns or any issues that we have not taken under consideration, which is really I would say the most important thing for us, to realize that things are developing really fast and to be able to remain relevant with where society is going. So this would be very helpful, and I think having people like you having such interesting ways of communicating these developments in politics, it's extremely useful and rare. So thank you for the invitation.
Well, thank you very much, Eva, and good luck. Looking forward to see more what's shaping, and I'll put the resources in the show notes, of course, so people can track what's going on. So thank you so much again. Thank you for listening to Voice of FinTech podcast. If you haven't already, check out also voiceoffintech.com, where you will find all the episodes and additional resources related to the podcast. You can also subscribe to Voice of FinTech on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, or any other podcast app that you like. If you have any suggestions on the topics or guests, or how to make this podcast better for you, please email us at info@voiceoffintech.com. Happy to hear from you. Thank you.